Good news today, everyone, or bad news, depending on who you are. The treasure loot cave has been hotfixed. That's right, your beloved cave of loot has had the spawns adjusted from a 6-second timer to a whopping 40 seconds, so enemies will no longer endlessly pour out of the cave. I'm very glad this was fixed because it was incredibly boring, and this is not the way I'd imagine Bungie wanted people playing their game. Hopefully it has been a lesson learned in how people get loot. It could be the most boring thing in the world, but it showed that people will do the best method of farming regardless of what it is, if it means they can get loot from it. Speaking of fixing more issues, you can no longer get ascendant materials from dismantling the Queen's Wrath gear. For the first couple of days, if you dismantled the legendary gear, you got ascendant shards from it. However, since you could get legendary armor up to 15 times a day if you have 3 characters, this meant a lot of shards very quickly. This is a no-no and has been fixed. Legendary armor from the Queen's Wrath missions will no longer grant ascendant shards. Legendary armor will still be dropping from the Queen's Wrath event, so if you still need to gear up, you should definitely do them. But if you're just looking for shards, then you are out of luck. In non-hotfix news, Bungie released an article today talking about the first 2 weeks of the game being out, how everything is going, and what changes are coming. First off, the Cryptarch will be getting some changes soon to address the randomness of engram encoding. Quote, "We didn't adequately communicate the potential random outcomes of decryption. Players see what looks like the familiar metaphor of item identification, while the Cryptarch thinks he's opening a grab bag of loot." End quote. Next, being rewarded is awesome, but sometimes you don't even know that it happened. For those of you who have ventured into the Vault of Glass, sometimes you'd miss the times that you got loot during an encounter because it's not very flashy. Bungie will be fixing this to make it more noticeable. The same thing will be happening specifically with the Daily Heroic. It gives big experience and rep gains, but it's never actually shown in the reward screen. Next up is voice communication. This has been a highly requested thing from the community since the launch of the game. However, they've been wary about adding voice communication due to the possible negative effects, people yelling, raging, or just in general being annoying. For now, they'll be adding voice chat to the Crucible and Strikes sometime this year. It's something that they've been working on since the launch of the game. Next up are Strikes. Strikes in general will be getting nerfed due to an unintended issue with players not dealing enough damage to enemies and players taking too much damage from enemies. Strikes will feel a bit less grindy soon. Raids, namely the Vault of Glass, will not see any changes. Now let's cover weapon balance. First up are exotics. There are 2 exotics right now, Thorn and Bad Juju, that are pretty underpowered compared to the rest of the exotic arsenal. Thorn only has 6 shots in the chamber and a very slow reload, and Bad Juju only has a 15 bullet max. Buffs will be coming to these weapons eventually, so do not get rid of them. Next are auto rifles. Auto rifles saw a nerf from the alpha to the beta, and then again from the beta to launch. They'll be getting yet another nerf to either their stability or their damage at long ranges, since at times they were better than the weapons that were intended for long range combat. Speaking of those weapons, scout rifles will be getting a damage buff soon, as they weren't hitting hard enough compared to other precision weapons. Finally, shotguns will be getting a nerf to their range, especially shotguns that have weapon upgrades intended to boost this range. Those are your hotfixes and your changes. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you guys later.